This life is a journey, a path made for me. With every step I take, as I run this race, I'm becoming the person you call me to be. A child of God, a life redeemed. So I set my eyes on you, Jesus, I'm ready, and ready to go. Where you lead, I'll follow.
Journey of Faith series introduces us to persons in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique who have been called to the religious life. It focuses on the lives and journeys of our religious, which should help us to get to know them personally and hopefully be inspired by their journeys. I am happy to introduce you to this Catholic series called Journey of Faith.
This is the journey of a lifetime.
Good day, listeners and viewers. Today we are sitting here with Father Carl Haynes, and we're going to get a little bit personal with him. He's going to share a lot of his life with us. He's going to walk us through memory lane, and he's going to tell us what it's like for him being a priest as he journeys through faith. Welcome, Father Haynes.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to go right into it. Who is Father Haynes? Let us tell the listening and the viewing public who is Father Haynes.
I am Grenadian by birth. Come from a small but large family. I grew up with an extended family because at the age of 5, I lost my mom. Right, and being a young mother, losing, passing away due to leukemia, right, and leaving 4 young children behind, so then my grandmother then took us and said, okay, and cared for us then, okay. So it had been at the age of 5, and I can recall probably even before that, because of illness and in and out of hospital, I have vivid memories of us as siblings living in our grandmother's house there.
Okay. And where was that?
That is in a small village called Cotomeli, Woodford area. But for people who don't know it, generally I would say I'm from Concord because people don't know the
But a lot of people relate Cotomeli to the big stone when they get on the bus.
So now,
yes. So we should know that hill area there. Yes. Or close to Grand Roy, we could just say, Mary got close to Grand Roy. Yes. And what number are you?
Second.
You were the second.
The second, but the first boy.
Right?
Okay. And as scripture has it that the firstborn son is given to the Lord.
Right, so you were the first boy, second in the family, yes? Dedicated to the Lord.
I would say that,
Was it at that time that dedication happened or later on in your life?
It was God's design.
It was God's design. Okay. As a child growing up, what were your hobbies? What was like with your friends and so?
Well, growing up in a community like that, I did what all the boys and young men in the community did. It was on the coast. There were 2 major rivers between that community. You had the Woodford River, the Concord River, and then we had the beach.
Okay. So you had a normal childhood.
Yeah. Okay. So I grew up on the beach, the river, playing football, cricket. Those were the things.
Would you say you were very close to the church growing up? Was it along the way?
I grew up in the church because my grandmother, that's my father's mother, who I grew up with, was involved in the church, right? And so I grew up in the church and went through different stages
You want acolyte once over
there. Of course, on the summer, youth group. I eventually became the youth coordinator. I was involved in the pastoral council and all of that,
Okay. So at what stage did you know this is the journey, the path for you, the calling? Or was it if it was a process over a period of time, share that with us.
Well, yes, I would say it was a process. And because I grew up in the church, I always felt that desire to serve and to do more, right? And I remember when I was Form 5 in Presentation College, on our graduation retreat, the question was like, what would you want to be? And I think the retreat presenter then was, I believe, Sister Claire Harris.
Yeah.
Right? And I said, I want to be a priest.
Okay.
Right? And that was because of my closeness to the church. Now, when I left school, it was a different story. Okay? All the wanting to be priest, and that went out the door.
Okay.
But I remained close to the church and got more and more involved. And I remember at one stage on my journey, which I believe many young people do, many of our young youth do, where you go through that phase where you stray from the church.
Right.
For whatever reason, you're going through your own struggles, questioning certain things. And I went through that. And I remember staying away from church for about 2 years. Right? Of course, you would go to a funeral, the odd occasion, but actively for about 2 years. And that Sunday, I just decided I'm going to church. And there was I in church. Announcement was made at the time of the announcement. All young people remain for a short meeting after Mass. Okay, I was still a youth. I remained. I think I was probably in my early 20s at the time. And I remained, and what the meeting was about was trying to revive and to reorganize and start a youth group in that particular church. Okay. And so I made my contribution, and and there and then they had elections. And I was elected on the executive. So you
don't have a choice. You had to come right back in. Okay.
Now I would look at it and say, God has a great sense of humor. And He has a way of doing things that amazes me.
He wanted you to explore yourself first while He brings you back. Yes.
And so from then on, there was no turning back. I got deeper and deeper involved in the church. And there came a time when it's like you get this far. You're feeling, I was feeling that desire to do more. What was that? What was the more? And I remember at one stage there was this particular former parish priest of mine, Father Sean, who used to keep saying to me, Carl, I think God is calling you to be a priest. And even though deep within I felt that desire.
Yeah, you haven't expressed it as yet.
Right, publicly. And I was denying it.
To yourself?
And even to people, Right, okay. Yes, I would have attended vocations, retreats.
Yeah, we did not go retreats together,
But it's still, no, that's not me. I want to have, a family and that kind of thing.
Right.
And I continued to explore. And felt that desire, but I felt, it was not normal to be a priest.
Were there any family expectations?
No, there was no family expectation, right? I have an uncle who is a priest. Okay, yes, we relate. I never shared my desire with him until I actually made the decision. Okay? We never had any discussions on vocation.
Now, what age was that?
Somewhere in my late 20s.
Late 20s,
yeah,
okay.
Late 20s. Now, what led me to make that decision? Because I was wrestling with it. And I remember an experience I had with an old lady whom God bless her soul. We did not know each other. I would have seen her before at various church activities. I have never disclosed my deep desire with, process like that. And I encountered this lady at Battle Hill. And we were there, I think it was at presentation of the gift. Yes. And they were singing You Are God Mighty and True. And I remember working on that particular Praise the Lord, that edition, and the song was stuck at the back page, the cover. Mm-hmm. And there was this lady, such and such, but she was sitting next to me, and I realized. And what I did, what I felt was my Christian duty to do. I see somebody needing help. I reached out and helped her. So I said, excuse me, let me help you find the song. And I did, and I gave it to her, and she said, thank you. And then she looked at the priest in the sanctuary, and she pointed out one, and she said, you see this priest up there? One day you would be like him.
Really?
One day you would be like him.
What was your response?
And I said, okay, thank you. Just quick to dismiss her.
Yes.
Because I did not want to hear that.
Right.
And so I dismissed her, and she tapped me on my shoulder. You heard what I said? And I said, yeah, just trying to get rid of her. And the mass continued, and just at the time of the entrance, I tried to sneak out before the priest processed out, and she held my hand, and she said, you remember what I said? I may not be alive, but in 10 years' time, you will be a priest. And the lady said that with such conviction that I went home and I was restless. Because that played on my mind. And I remember attending one of those youth retreats, or it may have been a youth retreat or vocation retreat, and the presenter, when asked, how do you know you have a vocation? Right? Do you hear God's voice calling you, or not? And he said, one of the ways is by people telling you. Mm-hmm. Somebody would see it in you. And that is God's way, he said, of calling you. And so that played on my mind, and, I concluded that it was indeed God speaking to me through that lady. I eventually discovered who that lady was. An old lady called Miss Rowley, I think, or Rolo. Very old lady, always at Battle Hill. And eventually, when I was ordained, I had the privilege, when somebody read that story, because I shared it with the editor of the Catholic News at the time, and somebody read that story, and they said it had to be that lady. And they called me, and they said, she was at the home run by the Missionaries of Charity, and she was celebrating 100 years. So I gladly said, I'm going to celebrate Mass for her on her birthday.
Praise be. But did she remember you, or she's not too?
She did not remember me at the time, nor did she remember the occasion.
Okay. So apart from this wonderful young, I'm saying young lady at that time, but that elderly person, who else would you say were your influences during that process? Your inspiration,
There are many people. Okay, Sister Genevieve Baptiste, who was a youth coordinator at the time, and being involved in youth ministry, there were a group of us, we were like sister right hand.
Right.
We were all over with her, involved in various youth activities.
But did she see that in you? Did she mention that? Or because the way she works with young people, it inspired you?
I can't recall her mentioning it. I can't recall. But I'm sure she may have. Knowing the kind of person she is, I am sure she may have mentioned it somewhere.
I think she was more like a mother figure. Getting things done.
And she would always, and sometimes she would say things in a jokey way, but was serious.
Right.
There were a few priests who I felt along the line influenced me as well, right? Just by the way they went about doing things, or sometimes things that was probably not done, and I felt, well, hey, look, I think if I become a priest, I can make a difference.
Okay. Great. What would you say now, as you are a priest, you are called to serve in a particular way? How do you balance that with you as a person and having your own interests, your own hobbies, and so do you get the time? And what is a day like for you?
As a priest, you don't often get time for yourself. For me, I have in the parish I'm presently in, I may have mass 5:30 a.m.
Which parish is that?
St. Dominic's.
St. Dominic's.
All right,
Okay.
so some days I have mass at 5:30 a.m. And from the time that starts, my day goes until sometime very late in the night. Okay, so I'm involved in the parish. You have things like visitation to the sick, trying to balance the office work. Well, thank God I have a secretary who looks after most of the
Administrative stuff.
administrative stuff for me.
Okay.
You have people coming to see me, for various reasons. And also as the Vicar General for the diocese, I also have to look at diocesan things, so I would have to spend time at the office in St. George's, ensuring that I fulfill my role there as well. Right. Added to that, I was the chaplain for the prison, but it had become too hectic and too much for me, and I had to say to Bishop, I think I cannot continue as the chaplain. It does not mean I would stop visiting the prison, because my experience of visiting the prison, I believe to be the prison chaplain, that has to be somebody full time.
Full time, right.
Because it demanded so much of me.
Yeah. Right. It's not just going to see mass and that's it.
No,
It's
because
counseling
sometimes I go there and spend 3-4 hours just talking to prisoners, listening to them. They
Do you get
need
to meet
people.
their families as well?
In some cases, some of them may give me a number, say, well, okay, contact my family for me, and and that kind of thing. Right. Added to that, I also do a little teaching.
But is that one of the hobbies, or is it a special interest, or that's your responsibility? Which one?
No, it's more of an interest and hobby,
Right.
because I think that God has blessed me with gifts, and I use those gifts to help others, because it's not my gift, but it is God's gift to me, and I ought to use it in the service of others. So I do a little teaching at T.A. Marisho Community College.
Okay. But do you have any other special interests, like art or painting, drawing?
Sports. As I said, I grew up playing sports, and so I love sports. Oftentimes, whatever sporting activities there is in the country, you would see me there. Whether it's West Indies playing cricket at the stadium, Grenada playing a football game, or some local teams, track and field. I would always go and partake.
So you do get time to at least explore some of your interests. So it's not a struggle. What I was trying to get, whether there is a struggle within yourself in performing your job as a priest. Well, your calling, let me not say it's your job. And things that you might be genuinely interested in and you're unable to,
I do create the time. Because for me, again, another thing I like is sightseeing.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And we have a beautiful country.
We have a beautiful country. We have plenty sights to see. So sometimes I look at my schedule and I realize, hey, I have some free time, some alone time. I take the vehicle and I drive and I explore some parts of Grenada. Some of it I may have seen before, but you just go and take in the scenery and just use the moment to unwind, reconnect. And also to commune with God.
Exactly.
Because, for me, I see God in the beauty of nature.
Right, yes.
And
He created it.
And I enter into some real good experiences, with God in nature.
Yes. Given the area in which you work and being a diocesan priest, what advice would you give to your parishioners or to the listeners and viewers here? As a priest, what more do you want to see as a Christian nation? What advice would you give for them? And secondly, if anyone is considering the calling of a priesthood or to religious life on a whole, what would you say to them?
So in terms of our Christian vocation,
Yes.
right, all of us are called by God, right, to fulfill our God-given gifts and talents, right? I often say that none of us are here by accident. It was God's plan, it was God's design, and God has a plan for us. There is something He created us for. And
True.
it is for each and every one of us to fulfill, or to discern rather,
Yes.
what is our gift? What is it that God is calling me to? Okay, God is not calling everybody to be priest or religious sister or nun, or nor is He calling everybody to be married or live a single committed life. Right? Each and every one of us has a purpose and a calling. And it is for us to discern and to discover what is our calling. And as we discover it, it is for us to fulfill our calling. You know, just as in the beginning, I told you I was wrestling with myself, right? Trying to discover and discern what was my calling. And when I discerned and I discovered, and I felt deep within that it was God's calling for me.
Because the restlessness disappeared.
I embraced it.
And yes.
Right? No, the restlessness did not disappear.
Okay.
Because even during my seminary years,
right, you still question it.
I still question it because you're never sure.
Right.
You're never sure that that is what God is calling. I was never sure that that was God's calling for me. And when I entered the seminary, I was told by the rector, and all the young men at the time who entered the seminary, we were told by the rector and the formation staff that we are not here to be priests, but rather we are here to discern God's calling for us.
Okay.
Because what we would have discovered then is that entering the seminary does not necessarily mean that you had a vocation to priesthood.
Okay.
But the process will help you discern.
Right, correct.
Right? And even then, on my journey, I was questioning it. And I left the seminary for a year. Okay, I took a year break because, again, there was a lot of unanswered questions. Right? And as I left, you know, as I say to people, when God calls you, He enables you. Right? So I took the year off. Just, it was in May 2004. Okay, that's when the seminary closed. I took a year off. Eventually worked out to be a year. It was just indefinite. And there comes Hurricane Ivan. Okay, and I just got involved in the church's relief effort and so on. I was just working tirelessly, doing that, helping people in various ways. And I think that helped me to refocus and to rediscover God's calling. Right. You know, in a year's time, I was back in the seminary.
You were a typical youth man. We dip, we come back out. Oh, we dip, we come back out.
You know, so like, you know, when sometimes I look at our young people,
I understand.
I can connect with them, you know, with the restlessness, the questions, you know, because we go through that process. And it is for us, for me as a priest and adults, to help guide them, because you see, if we leave them on their own, that restlessness could lead them astray.
True.
So, you know, we need to guide our young people. You know, entertain the questions, you know. Nowadays young people have more questions than in our time, you know. Because
they have more information.
Right, there's more information. The information is readily, you know, at their fingertip.
And there are more questions outside that has been asked to them. And they still answer,
you know, and we have to be equipped to answer the questions, you know. In my day as a young man, oh, don't worry about that, you know. Don't worry about that. Go and pray and that kind of thing.
Right,
you know?
You
can't tell the young people that. No.
We
have to provide them with answers and
evidence from
answers.
The Bible. Yes.
And you know, for a lot of young people now, they want empirical evidence.
Yes.
know?
That's what stage.
You can't just say, well, pray about it and believe.
Right.
You know, faith alone, they don't want that. They want the evidence. And I believe that there are many young people out there that God is calling. You know, the question is there is a shortage of vocation. Yes, there is a shortage of persons responding to the call.
Oh, okay. That's the difference.
But I believe God is calling.
Many.
But, yeah, but many a times we're not listening. Okay, we're not listening. And also there are many challenges out there for young people now, right? There are many options, right? And with that, sometimes it creates a bit of confusion in the minds and in the hearts of many people.
But do you think that there is a similar sort of support? When we were doing our retreat and in our youth group and so, do you think now that in the youth of today have the benefit of the similar support that we had back then?
I would say there are support. Again, I was only recently commenting to someone, we need to look at how we organize programs for young people. So yourself, I, who were around in the time of Sister Genevieve, and so it worked for us then. We cannot use the same thing for young people today, right? I know that Father Ronald, who is the youth coordinator, and his those who are involved in youth ministry are working hard to organize programs and so for young people and to get them, involved. But I think at the end of the day, whatever programs we have, we must be able to bring our young people to the point where they have a sense of God, they have a sense of who they are, and a sense of purpose. And one of the things that I think is lacking, and that in our society, is commitment. And I often say the problem we have with vocations today is a problem of commitment. Okay? And when I speak of vocation here, I'm not just speaking of priesthood
or
and religious life, but all the major vocations, right? A lack of commitment. We're not getting persons responding to the call to be priests or religious brothers and sisters. We're not getting persons responding to the call to married life. We're not getting persons responding to the call to live a single committed life. And I believe that is, for me, a lack of commitment. No longer people want to commit themselves to anything anymore, and that is, a reflection of society.
Because there's a sort of fluid
things are
nature
changing.
that people are attracted to now. They don't want to be called a particular gender. They want to be fluid.
Yeah.
They want to be trapped in any sort of definition or label. They want to be fluid. So there is no personal commitment.
Right. And then technology too play a part in that, because it keeps changing. You buy a phone today and you think that's the latest phone. And you 3 months down the road, you have to bring that in the museum, and you have to keep updating. And it's the same thing with our young people. They keep moving, right? And trying to keep up with all that is happening around them. And
because it's not so much the technology, but the social media, the rate at which information is coming to them. And some of it is not even correct.
Right.
It depends on where you want to channel persons to look for information.
Right.
But
Yeah.
So final question, Father, yes. For the persons who believe like yourself that deep down they do have a calling, but they're not too sure, they're exploring themselves, what sort of advice would you give to them?
Okay, if someone feels deep within them that they have that calling, I would first advise them to talk to somebody who can help them.
And who that somebody
If it's a priest, a religious sister, or somebody, because somebody like that who are on that journey already to help them, because you may go and talk to somebody who you think might be able to help you, and that person might discourage you. Oh, don't be priest, don't be that. So first, as you talk to a priest or a religious sister, if you have a spiritual director, discuss it with that person, and explore it, right? And don't think that, okay, if you have that idea, you have that desire, and you begin to explore it, that you cannot change.
But see, people are labeled sometimes when you're doing that process, and you mean going to the seminary, let's say, not the seminary, is it the seminary you call, right?
Yeah.
Where you to discern, and then afterwards, this is not what you And then people say, oh, but he was a priest. He left
Right,
church.
yeah, you know, and people see you as a failure, right? So sometimes our people can create a situation where we prevent, you know, because of the negative things we say. But if you think God is calling you, it is worth exploring, right? As I said, talk to a priest, a religious brother or sister who can help you make that journey.
Is there a hotline or some contact information that you can use and still remain anonymous?
Call any priest, right? And if you don't, I mean, you can call the presbytery and talk to any priest. Now, if you use your cell phone, your number may show up, so you can call back that number, right? That's if you don't have it on private.
Right.
Okay, but you can call any priest, presbytery now, and talk to the priest, you know, and feel free. Okay.
Right. Thank you so much, Father, for sitting with us and sharing your life, your journey. I think I took you back to some days that you probably didn't think about recently. Yes. Okay. I hope that persons viewing and listening would have gotten to know you a little bit better. And he's very approachable. Whenever you see him, you know, greet him, have a chat. Yes. And if you think you are being called as well, he is also available. So thank you for viewing and thank you for joining us today.
For me, with every step I take, as I run this race, I'm becoming the person you call me to be, a child of God, a life redeemed. So I set my eyes on you, Jesus, I'm ready. I'm ready to go. Where you lead, I'll follow. Where you lead, I'll go. Not gonna wait for tomorrow. This is the journey of